Well, hello there, and welcome to another mind numbingly exciting episode of My Dog Will Eat My Face. There will be thrills, there will be chills, and there will be dills. Dill pickles. It's a kosher episode. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, welcome to the episode. I wanted to talk about one particular topic that I know I've already touched on, but it is something that still continues to vex me. And for some reason, up to four, I have failed to accept a, mal- uh, a malady for what it is and be at peace with the condition. Now, it's strange. I am at peace entirely, and I really mean it with the idea of me dying at any time or in any form. I have no qualms about it. I've lived a full life, and that will echo in eternity. I've therefore done everything I could, and I leave this life with no doubt that I did the best I could, even when I failed at many things, as I assure you there were many. I did the best I could. But there is this particular different effect that is just tearing me apart, related to my particular terminal diseases, that is, heart failure and kidney failure. And again, I know I've talked about this before, but I cannot get to a good spot with this. So I'm okay with my death. But the part where I'm struggling and can't seem to find easy peace with is that the way heart failure and or kidney failure progresses, it's quite the antithesis of how the body deteriorates in many other diseases. Say, for example, cancer. People tend to wilt away and look sickly and become like a skeleton in skin. I kind of picture the victims in the concentration camps sort of look as somebody with a terminal disease, not being able to do much of anything. And frankly, if I were to lose some weight, and I did for a while, I'm fine with that because I I didn't like where I was at earlier, and I actually did lose a lot of weight, and I was very happy. But as my diseases progress, the antithesis is occurring. And the antithesis of what you would otherwise expect in a terminal illness, as I illustrated, say someone fading away or just gaunt and weak and thin and distant. All those, maybe not distant, but I'm getting the complete antithesis of all those things that you would otherwise expect with a terminal illness. And that's because my heart is failing to appropriately circulate my blood throughout my body. Because my heart is weak, because it's just going to get weaker and weaker, I have a relentless struggle with this little fun thing called edema. And I'm sure my listeners already know what that is, so I'll go into it a little bit here in this next segment, sort of describe where I'm at and where exactly I am so stuck with coming to peace with my future. So I'll get into that here in the next segment, and I'll include some of the details and with respect to edema for any folks out there that are new and don't know what exactly that is. You don't have to Google it, I can just tell you. And that's what I'll do. So, in short, edema is just the accumulation of fluid in your body because your heart is so weak it can't otherwise circulate it to the organs where it's needed. And it's so bad to where you could feel very dehydrated. And in fact, you are dehydrated. You could be drinking like mad, and your brain is saying, drink something, drink something, drink something. But my heart is so weak, it can't direct those fluids and nutrients to the organs appropriately and through the blood vessels appropriately. And so the fluid just sort of perforates around um, the blood vessels, the circulatory system in my body, and pools there. It just builds. So basically, you just blow up like a balloon. And edema can do that. It can be more minor, where you just have divots and some edema, like maybe in your ankle or feet. Uh, or it could be so severe to where you can't even put your shoes on, or even in some cases, say your pants or something else. And I've had that all happen to me. And as the heart weakens, and as it has been weakening, that edema has become dramatically worse to the point to where I am retaining a ton of water. And unfortunately, you really can't distinguish it from someone who's obese. Okay? Now you're seeing my issue with this. All my life, I've been the skinny guy. In school, I was picked on because they would say I was skin and bones, and all the kids would make fun of me because I was so skinny. I had briefly a real weird mental complex about it. I would have doctors tell me, you are underweight. You need to, and you're anemic. You need to eat more red meat. How many people's doctors tell them that? And I'm like, I am eating fine. It's just how my body always has been. But now, with this edema, as the heart is failing, I am blowing up like the Michelin Man. I'm starting to look like I am carrying, I don't know, 30 to 40 pounds of just blubber with me wherever I go. Now, of course, it's not blubber, it's fluid. And my hospice team is very quick to correct me when I say I look like a complete fatty. They correct me and say it's not fat, it's fluid. And I said, well, it could just very well be plutonium. I don't care. The end result is the same, and I don't like it. It could be straw from a farm that's being shoved into my belly. I, I don't care what the cause is. I care about the consequence of gaining a ton of weight, which makes breathing and locomotion even more difficult. And we'll come to a point where basically you just drown in your own fluids. That's how you die. Just in the last few weeks, I've gained at least 20 pounds, 20 something pounds. That's a lot. And I've noticed it in my clothing, how it fits uh, quite a bit. I've noticed it in my shoes and socks and my pants, even in my shirts. So I get the joy. Well, yeah, I'm not going to look emaciated and like I'm right out of Dachau or something like that, but rather I'm going to look like the biggest loser on my 600-pound life. That might be an extreme, though, okay? But that's just me trying to make a point. And I am totally at peace, as I said, with my death. I don't care when and how. I am comfortable completely with the life I've lived, and I'm still living, I might add. I am not idle just because I'm hurting. I still do things. For example, this very podcast. I could very easily curl up in bed and do nothing. But that's just not how I roll. They told me, a hospice told me that I qualified actually for a hospital bed in my place if I want one. And I was like, are you kidding me? No, I don't want that. Every single time I've been in the hospital, it's been looking forward to getting out and getting in your own comfy bed. So, no, I don't want a hospital bed. I want my own bed. And they can't seem, well, I take that back. They do understand my vexation with the weight gain of the fluids. I think anyone, as I've explained it, understands why that would be quite the put off. But here is something that alarms me, and it's the fundamental question. If I can be at peace with me expiring and going off into the ob- oblivion forever and ever, if I'm okay with that, why am I not okay with something so incredibly trivial? Boy, I mangled that word. Something so trivial. And it's not a big deal, but I absolutely despise it. It drives me crazy mentally. Mentally, I beat myself up a lot for it. And I'll admit it, I'll say it, I beat myself, not literally, but in my internal dialogue, I am not very kind to myself when it comes to this weight gain. So how can I be okay with something so paramount and and never ending? but not be okay with a side effect that, most importantly, I really can't do anything more about. And that's where this problem really gets into how I'm trying to get over this side effect, if you wish to call it that. I have made some mental takes and attempts to be okay with it. It just doesn't feel like I'm there though, and I'll share that with you guys here in the next segment. So, if you were to look at Stoicism, which is a philosophy I've really enjoyed to read, and understanding it has truly helped me in this mental battle as my body declines. It is, in fact, how I, in a way, came to peace with my own death. It had an impact on that. It wasn't all of it, but that philosophy had a significant impact on that change in me, in gaining that peace. Now, this same philosophy vehemently addresses things that are external to you, that are problems, that are things that happen that upset you, get in your way, ruin your crop or your project, or get you a F instead of a D. I don't know. There's something thoroughly about a lot of these things that one must always consider when they're thinking about maladies as they occur in one's life. If it's something you can control and have some influence in, then by all means, you should recognize what those things you can do are. You need to logically think about it and come to a point where you can take those baby steps to get into a position to where you've changed who you are, truly, to where you have changed your thoughts and become at peace with something that otherwise was a terrible cataclysm and wrought with negative emotion and fear. But if you look at the malady that is impacting your life and it's something you can't control, if it's someone else's decision, if it's the condition of your disease, if it's anything like that, if you have no control of it, you need to just get over it. You need to simply tell yourself to not care about it, because if there's nothing you can do to change this outcome, there's no reason to waste your time trying to do so. And you should not be a jerk to yourself, as I've been lately, bashing yourself. And certainly, if anyone else outside of you is doing that, yeah, you don't need that. But if that's occurring, you need to stop it because it's something that's totally out of your control. You need to drop it. Well, let me go back. You need to acknowledge it and know what it is, know the cause, know it's something you can't do anything about, and then drop it. Don't waste your time, but let the emotions come for sure. Don't have like a session of pressing your emotions down. It's totally okay to say, this really sucks, and complain and have a problem with it, or to even cry, depending upon what's going on. Those emotions are all good and okay. A lot of people mistake Stoicism as the one philosophy that is unemotional when it's quite the antithesis. It welcomes emotion. You should have it. You should let it flush over you and take its course. But you shouldn't let it destroy you, especially in cases where you have no control over what happened. Any vexation which you visit upon yourself or your neighbors is a waste of oxygen and time and misery that you otherwise certainly don't even remotely deserve, or your neighbors or your family members deserve. You need to forgive it and move on and acknowledge it for what it is, but be at peace because it's something you simply have no control over whatsoever. And I've been trying to do that as best I can. And I've really struggled. I've not had any decent results. I think about it, I get upset. The part where I fail is just dropping it because I'm so appalled by the event. And that's where I'm getting stuck. And it to me seems laughable that I can get at peace with completely dying, but getting fat is so unbearable. I have no way to handle it. I've told people many times, and I mean it. And this. I mean it when I repeat it here. I am a vain person. I admit it. I'm very vain, and it's just an attribute of my personality. I try to use it for good. I use it to, like in the workplace, use it to dress the best I can, dress for the job I want, not the one I have, and output the best possible work and results so that I can know I've done my best. Even if it hits the fan, I can know in my heart of hearts I did my best, and you can be at peace with that. But God help me, I am struggling with the weight gain. And it's kind of embarrassing. mention that to the world. I'm okay with much more severe things, and I'm so vain, I'm more upset about the least, not the least maybe, but the less important things. And my friends, I desperately need a way to break out of that. Just last week, I had a counseling session with my social worker, who I use not only as a social worker, but sort of as a counselor, and she's very good at it. So I enjoy seeing her once a week to go over life and my emotions and what's going on. And it's sometimes not even anything medical. It's just things in the periphery, but they all connect. They all influence each other. And it's been a pleasure to have her there as a resource to do this. And of course, I've used that resource to try to contemplate and overcome this this inability to free myself from this fear and self-directed anger, because it doesn't take a PhD or a psychologist to tell you that's not healthy thinking. And I banged it out. I think we went over an hour. We usually do. I can't remember if we were exactly an hour or a little bit over. Most of the time, we go a little over. And I was banging on this issue for an hour. And at the end, I was like, I'm in the same place where I started. I can cognitively understand Stoic philosophy with respect to handling maladies that you have no control over. And I can cognitively look at it, understand it. It makes sense to me. It makes me not want to go through what I'm going through. I get all that. And yet, I still find myself doing that when, it's middle of the night, you're alone with your thoughts, and there I am just wincing and despondent because of the weight gain. So, my dear listeners, do you have any ideas? I'm open to hearing any suggestions at this point. What I think this relates to, actually, as I'm thinking, is that this relates quite a bit to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, wherein you try to alter or cease the negative cognition before it starts. And you get to that point through therapy, but it's a means to change your cognitive behavior of coming to that same lamenting position and to frankly just get over it. So this actually really falls down into that as something that I'm probably going to have to do, but that is not easy. If anyone has ever been in cognitive behavioral therapy, it is not a couple appointments and you're all better. For most people, I've heard it's months or years. I don't have the time for it, is the problem. Sure, I can get started, but I'll never see the conclusion. So I am a little impatient with that. But that is the first answer that comes to mind with my issue of being stuck on this one particular thing, even though can cognit I can't speak wow cognitively understand it and understand that I don't want to be in that position. And I'll just delete those mispronunciations out later. I'll have a note here to do that so my technicians can do that for me. Anyway, I don't know if there's a fast way to do it. Every therapist or psychologist I've seen, they'll lament there is no fast track because most people that's what they want anyway. They want, especially in today's society, they want, oh, can't you just give me a pill? They don't even want to do any work. I feel for professionals in this day and age because that's got to be a constant battle with patients. My God, I can't imagine. Should probably go to a therapist and psychologist and say, "Do you need a hug?" Or, "I appreciate your service." And they'll be very thankful for that. Maybe, yes. This triggers my empathy for shrinks. But that is the only other thing I can see. Basically what I have to do is as soon as I approach that topic, I have got to cut off my negative self speak and remind myself that it is something completely out of my control. This is a perfect example, actually, of something being completely out of my control. It's the stage of the disease. It's almost as silly as going through the stages of a malaria infection and being embarrassed by it. Golly, as I say that, that kind of tells me how incredibly dumb my thought pattern has been. It's no different than being embarrassed or upset about a stage in a fight against malaria. It's pretty much the same thing. Oh, I have malaria. It's so embarrassing. I don't think anyone's ever said that. I think I'm the first human that's ever said that. Because that's where this is for me. The weight gain, it's embarrassing. That's my problem. If I'm home alone, I'm generally kind to myself and not beating down on myself, but as soon as I get dressed in a shirt or underwear, socks don't fit quite right, I I begin that vexation. And I don't deserve that. That's the first thing. I don't deserve to be beaten up, especially by my own self. I have got to come to the point to where as soon as those thoughts trigger in my head, I have to remind myself there is nothing more I can do. It is a stage in a disease. No diseases are pretty, especially when they're in the terminal stage. And they all have their quirks. They're not all the same by any means. How many people are embarrassed by the fact that they have the flu? Actually, I think this would be better related to people who have cancer. There's a lot of embarrassment if they lose their hair, go through some physical changes, missing school or work. I can understand that that's more similar and that they feel embarrassed by it. Actually, theirs is way worse than mine. It makes me look like a baby. So I think I'm stuck with at least some form of shorthand CBT, if there is such a thing, to where when I start to consider those negative thoughts, snap myself out of it, maybe wear a rubber band and literally snap it on me to tell me to stop. That's something they tell you to try and do. I might try that even. But my dog might eat it off my hand or something stupid like that. I don't know. There might be a small risk. But yeah, I think that is the only solution so far. That's all I can come up with. Is as soon as those negative cognitions float to the top, I stop them in their tracks and I say, this is something I cannot control. It is nothing to be embarrassed about. It is the progression of a disease, again, sadly, that you can do nothing about. If people treat you or look at you differently, who cares? You're fighting for your life, for God's sake. Is it God's sake or God's sakes? I've heard both. Which one is it? I don't know. But anyway, I think that's the only solution is that kind of shorthand way of stopping those thoughts and reminding me of those. What is it? First, it's something I can't control. Two, it's a part of a progressive terminal disease. It's not the result of my activity or things that I've done in my life. Nothing that I'm upset about was caused by something I did. Literally. At least the physical side. The mental side, yeah. At the mental side, I'm guilty as charged. I already said that. So I need to remind myself it's something I can't change. Number one. Two, it's part of a progressively terminal disease. Again, I can't do anything about it. And three, if people want to give funky looks or do whatever, then who cares? That literally has no impact on my life. Now, that's an interesting thought, too. A lot of this is literally embarrassment. But that is the drive for my vanity is I want to avoid embarrassment. And if let's go with it. I am embarrassed. Let's say I don't know. I go out somewhere with three oxygen tanks or something rolling around, and someone spotting me to switch out the tanks when they run out. Me huffing and puffing, using a cane, and could probably go faster if I just lay down and rolled to my destination. All those individuals that might look and judge have absolutely no impact on my life. My income isn't going to change, that's for sure. My dog isn't going to change, that's for sure. He'll still be here. My favorite foods aren't going to change. My home is not going to change. They have absolutely no impact on my life whatsoever, especially at this time in my life. So, what in God's name do I care? I am just giving free mental space to basically total strangers that are then. Let me back up. I'm imagining, not even getting, imagining judgment from complete strangers due to a stage and a progressive terminal disease that I can't do anything about. And their thoughts have no impact on my health or life. What in God's name do I care what they think or don't think or whatever? I can sit there and say, what if all day long? What if they think this? What if they think that? Bottom line, who cares? They have absolutely no bearing on my life. I will be able to go home and everything is exactly where I put it. I'm not going to get fined for being fat. I'm not going to face any legal repercussions. No repercussions whatsoever. I mean, there are the natural repercussions, like I can't touch my toes anymore. It hurts when I try to move in a certain way, and then sometimes I just can't. So it does impact my daily life. Actually, it makes moving very painful sometimes. Bending over to pick something up feels like the Baton Death March to me. And sometimes I just fail. I leave it on the ground. I can't physically pick it up. So I got one of those little stick grabbers, which you can get at like Walgreens. And you can grab things with this stick. I use that all the time. because I can't pick up things. I try, and it's just like it hurts way too much, and it feels like I'm pushing my entire gut into my diaphragm so I can't breathe. So I got one of those stupid picker upper sticks. I think that's the solution, my friends. As I pause and consider it. What people may or may not think has absolutely no impact on my life in any way whatsoever. Nothing bad will ever happen from what they think on this particular item or on this particular issue. Nothing bad will happen from whatever it is they think. That I think I can bet on. So I'm beating myself up on something I can't control and on potential judgments and thoughts from strangers who I otherwise don't care about whatsoever. And why care about this? So it's really a double failure. One, I'm upset about something I can't control. Two, I'm imagining what people are thinking. And even if they were thinking the worst things, it would have no impact on my day to day life. Even if I am embarrassed, let's go all the way. I am embarrassed. Let's say something happens. I'm just terribly embarrassed. So what? It's not like I'm going to lose my income or be evicted. My life otherwise is completely unchanged. It doesn't do anything. Might get pity from strangers, that's about it. So, even in the case of the worst possible imagined event that I think I subconsciously have formed as a consequence of these changes in my body, in every which way, it has absolutely no impact on me. And for me to loiter in this despondent space over these changes is entirely asinine. And more importantly, I don't deserve that. I can control my thoughts, not other people's. And I need to treat myself a little better when it comes to things like that. I don't know who first said it. I think it's something that was used in a lot of motivational quotes and whatnot in the past. I don't think the origin is entirely known. But there is an old quote that I remember. It's kind of cheesy. It's kind of a good old bumper sticker quote. But simply put, self respect is non negotiable. I have to stop beating myself up because I'm the only one doing it. If I wish to have peace on this topic or something else, I've got to clearly understand that it's something outside my control. And I have to give myself its well earned self respect so as to not be impacted by even the worst embarrassment. And I think that's the answer. It's not a short answer, but it is an answer. So, my dear listeners, I think I'm going to go ahead and work on closing this week's podcast out. I am going to have to really catch myself in that self speak and respect myself enough to do it and tell myself the truth, which is it's something completely out of my control. And the worst case scenario of my potential embarrassment, as well as everything else, would have no impact on my day to day life whatsoever. So, why in God's name be upset about that? I should treat myself better than that. That's how I think it's broken down. And I think that's a good way to close out this podcast with that summary of things I have to do. Now, I don't expect immediate, consistent success because it is still CBT somewhat. It's a lot of self speak that needs to be stopped, and there's a lot of self speak that needs to remind me of the facts. So I don't expect this change to happen tonight, tomorrow. It's going to take a while of me doing this. So I get to a point of being at peace with these changes in my life, in my physical body. I think I think that basically says it all. And if you've made it this far on my podcast, I thank you dearly. I appreciate all your support and me having a venue to voice what's happening in my life as I deteriorate. And work through these issues introspectively with an audience of anyone who has a smartphone or a computer. So you can support the podcast by going to Spotify and find the podcast homepage there and donate. Or the easiest and best way is to go to patreon.com/my dog will eat my face. And you could drop a shekel or two in there to help me get through all of this. Because I'm not one to complain about money, but I'm not going to lie. As I said in my previous episode, the rest of the world is still going. It has no sympathy for my condition. I still have rent. I still have utilities. I still have bills. I still have credit card debt. And no one cares about what's going on in my life. The world is going to stubbornly move forward with and without me. And so, even though you could give something more to support the channel, I really do mean it when I say you've already given me the best you honestly could have ever given to me. And again, that's just a place for me to voice these introspections and ability to drastically change my way of thinking, to be at peace with things that happen to me. I hope to have another podcast soon. Right now, it's been about every other week because I'm pretty tired. I'm not able to do one as often as I once was. I'm sure you can hear the tiredness and raspiness in my voice. That's still there and getting worse. Um, but I do try to get episodes out as frequently as I can. So definitely subscribe, and I'll keep making podcasts as best I can until that final curtain falls. That's my goal. But for now, I have to say, Dosh Vidanya.